Hi, everyone, and welcome back to the Mindvalley podcast. I'm so excited to have you guys back with us this week. I know we are in some interesting times, and with us today is a remarkable teacher here in Mindvalley that I think could add some beautiful philosophical understanding of the nature of life and what we're going through right now. She's none other than Emily Fletcher of Ziva Meditation. Emily is one of the leading meditation experts in the world. She's the official meditation instructor on the Mindvalley platform. Her program, The M Word, is a 30-day meditation program on Mindvalley. And Emily has been teaching meditation everywhere, from Harvard University to Google. Her recent book, Stress Less, Accomplish More, debuted at number 7 out of all books on Amazon. She's been on Good Morning America, The Today Show, Vogue, ABC News, and she has officially, at this point, trained 25,000 people on meditation. She officially has now spoken at Apple, at Google, at Barclays Bank, and her graduates include Oscar, Grammy, Tony, and Emmy Award winners, which is interesting because Emily Fletcher is a former Broadway actress. And when you hear her story of how she went from Broadway to meditation, it's fascinating. But random fact about Emily, in her final performance on Broadway, before she gave up being an actress, Emily performed on stage with, and Emily, I'm going to bring you on right now because I want you to start with this story because it's so freaking cool. Okay. So tell us that story before we go into the podcast.
Yeah, so you're right. It was the very last thing I ever did as an actress. And I was already in my meditation teacher training, but I got a call and they said, hey, we want you to perform. Sadly, someone has passed away. We want you to perform at Marvin Hamlish's memorial concert. And I just thought it'd be a few hundred folks in a church, honoring this Broadway legend. It's at Juilliard. Mike Nichols is directing. I go on stage and he's on the microphone. He says, Emily, can you just bring the microphone with you? Because we're not sure what Liza's going to do. And I was like, Liza Minnelli? And he said, yes. And then I go up in my dressing room after the rehearsal and I hear this voice and I said, who is that? And they said, oh, that's Aretha's stand-in. She doesn't do mic checks. And I said, Aretha Franklin? And they said, yes. So I was sandwiched in between Liza Minnelli and Aretha Franklin. And then Barbra Streisand was the final performance. And that was it. I was like, mic drop, I'm out.
So your final performance on Broadway was with Barbra Streisand, Aretha Franklin, and Liza Minnelli. How freaking cool is that? And then you gave that up to start the Ziva Meditation School in New York.
That's correct. I found this tool that changed my life so dramatically. And I just thought, why does everyone not do this? And I feel so grateful now that I get to use that performance background, but now to help people through intense situations such as this one that we're in right now.
And one of the beautiful things about your life story is you spent time in India. You did not just go and get a meditation certificate on the internet. You actually went and did it old school. You traveled to India. You joined an ashram, right? You did the whole eat, pray, love thing in a way in India.
Well, what's funny is that actually Julia Roberts was in India shooting Eat, Pray, Love when I was there. And so people really? Oftentimes would mistake me for her because, big toothy grin, tall white lady. And so finally I just started signing autographs and I was like, you know what? This is a win-win. I feel like a celebrity. People think they met Julia Roberts. I mean, it would be like droves of Indian teens. And I was like, let's just go with this. So I'm sorry, Julia Roberts, that I lied.
And folks, this is why I love having Emily in the podcast. And this is why Emily is our official meditation teacher, because she cracks me up. Like, she is so hilariously funny. But Emily, I thought it was good to start with some humor, but I know a lot of people are going through some tough times. I know where you are in New York right now. It's not easy. And well, just give us an idea. How are things out there in New York City?
Yeah, so it feels like right now New York is the hotspot for this pandemic and sort of the first city that's been really intensely impacted in the US. And to be honest, it's a little eerie because normally New York is so densely populated and people are everywhere and cars are everywhere. And now to go outside and it to be empty feels a little surreal. But for a lot of us, I mean, for me personally, I'm incredibly grateful because my life, my day-to-day has not changed that dramatically. And so I'm just using this as a time to be of service as much as I can, because I know so many people have had their whole worlds and industries and families turned upside down. And that hasn't been the case for me. So I'm just using this as a time to be generous. However, I do know that our hospitals are, they're they're overflowing. And when, there's a lot of conspiracy theories going around and people saying this is all a hoax and people taking video cameras into hospital waiting rooms and they're like, they're empty. And what's happening is that people aren't going to the hospital for things that they might have gone to the hospital for a month ago, a sprained ankle, something that would, a month ago weren't going to the hospital. A lot of people are choosing to stay home. So while the waiting rooms might be empty, that does not mean that we don't have the situation at hand where we're trying to figure out who we put on ventilators and who we don't. And at that point, we are very capacitated. But I will say that if you just go to like the parks, or if you are feeling the energy of the city, people feel very kind and very resilient. People they're smiling through their eyes and being extra friendly to each other, even from 6 feet apart. And I feel really proud to be a New Yorker right now.
I know. And I started Mindvalley in New York. So I have a close passion and affinity for New York. I've been in New York during some crazy times in the city, such as the Great Blackout. I think it was 2003. And it's always surprised me how kind-hearted New Yorkers are. In fact, there was a Reader's Digest poll, I think it was 2005 or 2006 or 7, that showed that New York was the friendliest city in the world.
Oh,
like it does not deserve the rep it gets. And
I know. I mean, we're in a hurry, but we're not mean.
New York.
Thank you. I was here in September 11th as well. I had moved to New York 3 weeks before September 11th, bright-eyed actress, I'm going to be a star on Broadway. And then 3 weeks later, September 11th happened. And I actually felt very grateful to be here then as well, because in the weeks that followed that, the level of resilience and kindness and coming together and pride that happened in this city felt really inspiring. And, I've heard people say, I'm not interested in another September 11th, but I am interested in another September 12th, where humans just really stepped up and adapted and came together to heal and innovate. And that's one of the reasons why I was so excited to record with you today, because I feel like we're in a similar situation right now where we are being asked to adapt as a species.
And let's get on with the topic. The reason I wanted to have you on this podcast is because so many people are having, and justifiably, fears, anxiety. It's not just a disruption of our way of regular life. We can't go to our office. Our kids are out of school. But there's also that disease lurking out there that's killed around 12,000 people in the United States alone, 85,000 people globally. And there's that big looming recession. And so it seems that we're being hit with so much as a species, all at the same time. And I know we'll get out of this, but it's going to be tough for a while. Now, you've studied the Vedas. You've spent a great deal of time teaching meditation. You've studied with meditation masters. I'd love for you to bring some insight, wisdom, and your light to the questions that people might have. And so I'd love to get started and hear your thoughts on, from a greater spiritual perspective, or from what you've studied in the Vedas, how do you see what's happening right now?
So what I'm about to share, I in no way mean to minimize anyone's fear, anxiety, suffering, or the amount of intensity that this experience is bringing. And I think, we'll talk about how we can use the fear, use the pain as our teacher as well. But what has really been helping me and what's giving me a lot of perspective is to pull the lens way, way, way back and to remind ourselves of this concept that comes from the Vedas. And it is the idea that what if there was no such thing as good or bad? What if there was no such thing as right or wrong? And even if this is fundamentally opposed to your belief system, fine. What if we just try it on as a thought experiment? What if there was no such thing as good or bad? What if there was only creation, maintenance, and destruction? So it's a pretty weird idea because a lot of us have been trained like right, wrong, evil, good, light, dark. And according to the Vedas, there's no such thing as good or bad. There's no such thing as right or wrong. There is only creation, maintenance, and destruction. And these three things flow in a cycle. And what happens is that if we lead with creation, then we get nature's support. You start a company, you write a song, you get pregnant, people throw you a baby shower. Anytime you're creating, innovating, we start to get nature's support, which looks like ease, elegance, flow. And then right behind creation is maintenance. And then right behind maintenance is destruction. And if we're leading with creation, then everything flows pretty elegantly. But what happens is that we humans, we create, we like the results of our creation, and then we immediately try to maintain. We immediately try to stay safe. We try to hold on. Like I get on Match.com, I get in a relationship, and I'm like, oh, I like you. You're cute. I like the way you make me feel. Okay, so you just stay the same, and I'll just stay the same, and we'll never change, and we'll just stay together forever and ever and ever. And then the person breaks up with us, right? So if we're leading with maintenance, then what happens is creation goes to the back burner and destruction is now nipping at our heels. Destruction is coming through to clean house. Destruction is coming through to make way for creativity. So the whole thing is a cycle, but what's happening is that we've seen in many industries, we've not been acting in sustainable ways as far as our environment goes, as far as our diet goes, economically. These bigger global systems have been maintaining for a long time. And so it seems like destruction is coming through to clean house. And while no one wants to be in destruction, okay, and again, I'm not minimizing the level of suffering that is real for many, many billions of people on the planet right now. But what has brought me comfort is that instead of seeing this time of destruction as inherently bad, right, as something to avoid, as something to damn, as something to condemn, instead, if we see, okay, destruction is cleaning house, it's getting way of the old irrelevant systems, and what's right behind destruction? Creation. Right? If you see it as the underbrush in the forest being burned away so that the new growth can come through, then it helps us as humans not only to cope, but to start to ask better questions. Because as you well know, the quality of our life is determined by the quality of our questions. And if we're asking right now, why me? Why now? This isn't fair. Whose fault is this? Who can I blame? That's going to give us a very different experience than how can I innovate? What creation is coming through? What industry would I love to see on the other side of this? How could I make my industry more sustainable, more kind, more compassionate? And so it becomes then a really spiritual practice, a really creative practice to start to envision this new world, because there's no going back. We're not going back to how things used to be. Nature does not, it's only evolving, right? It's only moving forward. And so this idea of let's go back to normal, that wasn't working. It wasn't sustainable. And so we have an opportunity here to wake up as creators, to wake up as innovators, and to start to ask more powerful questions.
I love that. Creation, maintenance, destruction. Other than what's happening in the world right now, what are some other examples in our life where you see this pattern unfolding?
Yep. So a simple one would be you start a new workout program, right? You're like, oh, I'm going to do Wild Fit on Mindvalley, and I love it, and I'm eating great, and I'm working out, and I'm loving it, and I finished the quest, and I'm like, all right, I met my goal. Now I'm just going to maintain. And if you're just maintaining and you're not innovating, you're not leading with creation, next thing you know, you're weaker than when you started. The habits have started slipping back. You have a rich aunt, she passes away, she leaves you $10,000. And you're like, okay, I'm just going to save it, and I'm just going to hold on. And then it's bank fees and inflation and a recession, and it's gone. Versus if you were investing that, if you were starting a company, if you were creating with those same funds, then it grows. It's like energy wants to flow, money wants to flow. And look, creation, while you will get nature's support when you innovate, and if you want proof of that, look at the stock market. And even though it's taking a nosedive right now, the companies who we're throwing our money at, Amazon, Google, Facebook, the people who are innovating the fastest, these are the people that we're giving our support in the form of money. These are the people whose stocks do the best. If you were to choose a doctor, who do I want to do open heart surgery on me? And one doctor is like reading all the new studies, has all the latest equipment, has read all the new, journals. And then another doctor has been doing the same thing since the 70s. He's been maintaining. Like, who do you want operating on you? You want the person who's leading with creation. And so, it happens again and again. And so it's just an opportunity for us to ask different questions instead of, oh, this thing is good and this thing is bad. Why did this bad thing happen to me? Instead, we start to ask, where am I personally leading with creation? Where am I leading with maintenance, and where has destruction come through to clean house? Because if we're leading with maintenance, if we're stagnating, we're basically waving the flag of irrelevancy for destruction to come through and clean house. Stagnant water breeds disease. Stagnant energy in the body breeds disease. Things want to move. And as you well know, energy is either creating or it's destroying.
Right.
And so if you're not expanding, you are by default contracting.
Mm-hmm. So I get the creation, I get the maintenance. What is the destruction then? What is that force of destruction? Where is it coming from?
Well, according to the Vedas, it's all nature. Like the most beautiful fundamental concept from the Vedas is that there's only one thing and we are all it. And that one thing is energy. Or you could say that one thing is consciousness. Beautiful. But so if you think about it, so if you're going to take that one unifying thing as energy and then say, okay, well, there's three different elements to it. There's an element that creates, there's an element that maintains, and an element that destroys. It's all nature. And look, that's happening inside of our bodies right now. We have new skin cells that are being birthed right now. We have old skin cells that are dying and going away and flaking off. We might go to the bathroom later and have a poo. That's destruction. You might clip your toenails. That's destruction. Right now, my hair is growing. That's creation. Right now, we're learning new concepts. We're teaching each other. So we have new neural pathways going, and we have old parts of our brain that we haven't used in a while that are atrophying. And so those neural connections start to dissipate over time. So it's happening all the time.
And so what the Vedas are saying is that there is no wrong in the world. There's only creation, maintenance, and destruction.
Yeah, that it's not inherently good. It's not inherently bad. It's just one of these three elements. And there's this Shakespeare quote as well that says, nothing is either good or bad, but thinking makes it so. And I'm like anticipating the comments that might be coming up of like, but my child is sick. How is that not bad? This company is profiting off of people who are vulnerable. How is that not bad? And look, again, I am not trying to invalidate anyone's suffering or the realness of anyone's experience. To me, it's just a more empowering lens through which to see things. And look, destruction exists for a reason. There are sometimes industries that do need to be destroyed. Correct behavior sometimes needs to be corrected. And oftentimes that will happen through destruction. So if you think about even the idea of karma, a lot of us think, well, karma is like a cosmic bank account. And if I do good deeds, then I'll get rewarded with good things. But my understanding of karma and dharma is that like dharma is your path. It's your life path. And when you're on your dharma, when you're on your mission, when you're innovating, when you're creating, then it's like you have this smooth paved 6-lane highway and you are just, flowing towards your goals and your dreams. And when we start to veer off of our path, when we start to lead with maintenance, or we start to become a bit irrelevant, the karma is simply the bumps on the side of the road. And it's not there to punish you. It's not there to be mean to you. It's just to wake you up. It's a course correction. It's like, hey, you're getting off your mission. Let's go back into the smoothly paved dharmic lane. So again, it's neither good nor bad.
That's a powerful idea. Please continue.
Yeah, it's just a course correction, right? So it's like right now we're having a massive course correction. And the thing is, we knew this. We knew it a year ago that so many of these industries, so many of the things that we're engaging in are not sustainable. Climate, and I'm seeing this, and this is not a fun or optimistic viewpoint, but I'm seeing this massive global adaptation as almost a dress rehearsal for the inevitable changes we're going to have to make as humans leading with climate change. And so while this is intense and painful for a lot of folks, I don't think this is anywhere near as intense as things might be once we start to really feel the ramifications of climate change. And so if we use this alarm clock, because look, I don't like it when my alarm clock goes off. It hurts, it's painful. It's like, oh, I would much rather stay asleep. But alarm bells are ringing right now. And we have an opportunity to wake up and to change our actions personally, globally. And if we do, I think we can possibly get back on the creation path, get back on the smoothly paved lanes of compassion, sustainability, generosity, that we all idealize intellectually. But then when it comes to us, it's like, well, I'm afraid, so I'm going to hoard and I'm going to just take care of me. And because when we're in fight or flight, when we're stressed as a species, we can't help but want to fight other people. And I think we've been too stressed as a species for too long.
Wow, I love that. And what resonates with me is the idea of karma being the bumper rails. I
Mhm.
remember when I was first starting my entrepreneurial endeavor, I dabbled in a lot of different things. But one of the patterns I noticed is that every time I did something that involved education technology or personal growth, it would thrive. Every time I went off that, it would
Mhm.
fail and it
Mhm.
would be painful. These would be painful failures. And eventually I came to understand one thing. I wasn't going into ed tech because this was like 2003 to 2012. Ed tech wasn't cool. There was no money in ed tech. Ed tech was hard. Companies like LinkedIn and Udemy and Masterclass and Coursera and Udacity did not exist. And so it was tough. And I was trying to find something that might actually be a viable business. But the universe kept causing everything else to crumble for me to lose money. That every time I did ed tech, I would have the most resounding luck. And today I've learned my lesson. I only do, as an entrepreneur, I only focus on education technology. Everything has to be about learning, growth, and education. And everything I do ends up being really successful. And I realized that what I thought were failures was simply the bumper rails, the karma, keeping me on my dharma. So that was a beautiful way that you explained it. Thank you for that.
My pleasure. And something that I just want to highlight here is that I am sure that even in the beginning, even when you were doing the ed tech things and it was eventually panning out, it didn't necessarily mean that it was easy. Because when you're learning the lesson, it's like, well, I don't know which is going to be successful. And
Yeah.
they all are, they require a level of energy and bravery to create. And so the thing I want to highlight is that it does take a level of mastery to trust and listen and be tuned in and tapped into your own intuition enough to see, well, this is how nature's using me as a vessel, even though it's uncomfortable, even though it's scary. Because look, while when we lead with creation, we're going to get more of nature's support, the path is going to be smoother. That doesn't mean that creation is easy. Having a kid, hard work. Starting a company, hard work. Writing a book, hard work. So there are labor pains that go along with creation, but sometimes because we're afraid of that pain, that labor, that birthing pain of creation, because we're trying to avoid that pain, sometimes that keeps us stuck in maintenance. We get enamored with the illusion of control. We convince ourselves that that maintenance is safety, when actually the ever repeating known is the
Mhm.
most dangerous place there is, right? If we're
The ever
leading with
repeat known. What does that mean?
the ever repeating known is the most dangerous place there is, because it means if you're repeating what you know, repeating what you know, repeating what you know, staying stuck, stagnating, maintaining, you're basically again waving that flag of irrelevancy for destruction to come through and clean house, to make way for the innovation. So even though it feels sometimes more comfortable, it feels more safe to stay in maintenance. Well, I've got enough. My relationship is fine. My physical health is fine. I have enough knowledge. My kids are fine. The environment is fine. Status
Mhm.
quo. Then it's eventually going to become irrelevant, and then a course correction has to come. And look, I'm not even suggesting that this virus is the destruction force. I'm saying that the reaction to the virus, the economic changes that we're seeing, us being inside and quarantining, like this is the course correction. The virus to me just seems like the instigating force.
I love it. Now, what do you think? What are some of the things that you think are going to emerge from the post COVID-19 world? What is this? Obviously, certain systems and structures and ways of life are going to be destroyed. But what is that next wave of creation that you perceive as potentially emerging?
Well, I'll tell you what I hope happens. I'll tell you in my dream case scenario. I'm by no means a futurist or a predictor of global trends, but I'll tell you what I'm dreaming of. And that is that we as a species fall in love with spending time with our families again. If you have the fortune of being quarantined with people that you love, including your kids, while that might be challenging at times, like how many home cooked meals have we had with our children over
Right.
the past few weeks? What a blessing. what a gift. How many times, one of my guilty pleasures, one of my guilty habits was that I would order takeout a lot. And then there's plastic, there's terrible oils and fats. That food is not sustainable. And I used to do it a lot and I would feel guilty about it. And now I'm not doing that. I'm cooking for my son. I'm cooking for my husband. I'm cooking for myself. So I'm making healthier food. People are looking at what they have, working with what they have, looking in a pantry and saying, how can I be creative with tonight's meal versus let me just call for an order for pizza or, go to the store and buy more of what I don't need. We're rationing, but not, to me, rationing is, there's a way to do it out of fear and like, oh my gosh, I don't have enough. Let me just survive on meager scraps. Or there's a way to do it that is innovative and creative. Well, I'm going to pretend I'm a chef and be like, I'm on Top Chef and I have these, and my challenge is you have these 5 ingredients, make it work, people. There's a level of creativity even happening with our food. I think that education is being disrupted in a very real way, which I think companies like Mindvalley, who you've been innovating and investing in online education now for over a decade. And so it's like, people who've already been doing this work, I think are going to be rewarded. I think that people are waking up to the fact that self-care is non-negotiable. It's non-negotiable. You're being forced to sit with yourself. You're being forced to sit with your feelings, to sit with your thoughts. And there's only so much wine you can drink. There's only so many Netflix episodes out there. Eventually you're going to have to feel your feelings. And I think what a lot of people are learning is that they don't know how to sit with themselves. And I can just speak for what I'm seeing at Ziva, but we've had more people enroll in our course in the last 3 weeks than we ever have before. We're offering full scholarships to nurses and doctors and EMTs on the front line. We've given over $500,000 worth of scholarships to people on the front line just in the last 3 weeks alone, which I'm really proud of. But we've also given a 50% price reduction, and then people are like, they are ready. And I think that they're learning that they don't know how to sit with themselves. And there's a quote, who is it? I think it's Rilke, and it says that all of the world's problems stem from man's inability to sit quietly with himself.
Right. That's beautiful. And by the way, that's amazing what you're doing. So for people who are listening, who are working in healthcare, how would they come to Ziva? How would they find you guys?
Yeah, so you just go to zivameditation.com/online. So it's Z-I-V-A. I know it's kind of a weird word. Thankfully not Zika. That was our last pandemic that people were concerned about. But it's just zivameditation.com/online. And you can apply for the scholarship there and you can see the price reduction on for everyone else.
That's amazing. Thank you, Emily.
Mm-hmm.
So that was Emily Fletcher. And thank you so much for joining us on the Mindvalley podcast. And if you're interested in learning more about Emily, definitely check out zivameditation.com, but also go to Amazon and check out Emily's book, Stress Less, Accomplish More. Thanks everyone for listening. And if you'd like to leave us a review, go ahead, leave us a review, mention Emily Fletcher so we can compile those and send it to Emily. And Emily, thank you for joining us on this show.
What a joy. Thank you for having me.